home and car insurance together so you can save on both. Learn more at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. We are just a couple of weeks away from the NFL Draft. We will be there. Our coverage here on Unsportsmanlike Live from Detroit. CC will be a part of the ESPN Radio Draft coverage Thursday and Friday night.
Do we know where we're doing the show from in Detroit?
A broadcast location?
I think
that's where we have no idea.
No, I think Nuno knows. Nuno, do you know?
I do know.
Okay.
There's actually an ESPN bet at one of the local casinos. So we're gonna
awesome.
Do it from
Hello.
That'll be fun in the morning.
That'll be great.
Canty's best bet of the night, live from the casino.
At, Nuno? Where it actually is, though? Where this casino
Detroit.
It's at Detroit. Okay. All right.
On that note.
That really narrows it down.
Yeah.
I'm now nervous.
Why?
Am I going to be able to control my eating at a sports ESPN Bet Sportsbook casino? You know how much food there's going to be there?
Yeah, but that early in the morning?
You're
getting after it?
For us?
I mean, are you getting after it that early in the morning?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how far away
I feel
we're
like
staying.
With breakfast, you don't have really a ton of options, right? Like you have the fewest options at breakfast in any meal of the day. Right, with lunch, with dinner, you have so many other foods that you can get into.
Because you can include breakfast.
With breakfast, it's kind of simple, right? It's either you're going to go with the eggs, you got pancakes, you got the French toast, and that's about it.
Are we going sweet or savory?
That's it.
All right,
That's
Dan Graziano joins this conversation, ESPN NFL reporter. What a conversation you just walked into, We are a few weeks away from the draft. It feels like the differing opinions on J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, are all over the board. What is your latest opinion on where J.J. McCarthy could land in the draft?
I think the Giants like him. I think I believe that. You know, it's a tough time of year to know what to believe. So my guess is he probably doesn't get past that 6th spot. Now, does somebody else trade up? Do they have to trade up to go get him? Could he be? Could there be a surprise where one of the teams in the top 3 likes him better than Drake May or Jaden Daniels? Yeah, but I would think he's probably a top 6 pick. That's as far as I'm willing to go at this stage.
Dan, this weekend, our very own Jeremy Fowler reported that the Atlanta Falcons had Michael Penix Jr. in for a workout, and they don't believe that he's going to be there when they pick in the 2nd round. So curious to know, is the interest between Mike and Michael Penix Jr. real for the Atlanta Falcons?
I think I think that's the kind of thing where they're like, let's take a look and see, right? Because Kirk Cousins is not a long timer in Atlanta, right? It's probably 2 years. So yeah, let's see if this is worth it kind of thing. A lot of teams just really like to take a look at quarterbacks, even if it's just to find out what makes them tick. You know, Andy Reid used to say, like, he always likes to interview the quarterbacks, even though he doesn't need one, just because, you know, you never know what kind of information you might glean about potentially an opponent. So obviously Kirk Cousins is going to be Atlanta's starter for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. But I think it's one of those fact-finding missions where, like, hey, if this is somebody we really think highly of, and let's say we could get him in the early 2nd round, right, then, yeah, sure, we'll take a look.
Dan, is there another team out there that maybe we haven't put in that quarterback conversation? Maybe they have somebody at the position, but they could surprise us and go for a quarterback in the draft?
Would the Saints count?
Yes,
I mean, they have Derek Carr with big guaranteed money this year, but nothing after this year, and so they're probably looking for a long-term solution. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that's a team with some history of moving up in the draft to get guys they want. So that's probably your answer, I would think. Top of my head, just kind of imagining what the second half of the round looks like. That would be the team that stands out to me.
We're talking with Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL reporter here on Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Dan, who gets a deal done long-term first, Dak Prescott or Micah Parsons?
Oh, geez. Well, I'll say this. I don't think either one of those deals happens in the 2024 calendar year. So let's say Dak next year, because they're going to have to, right? Like, he'll be a free agent if he gets to next March. So I would say that happens after next season ends, and then maybe Micah happens next summer. That's my bet. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is the guy they have to do sooner than either one of those two. So I think once somebody signs, let's say Justin Jefferson finally signs or something like that, then the wide receiver market starts to move. That's probably the extension the Cowboys do first.
Dan, how do people in NFL circles anticipate the ongoing legal situation with Rashee Rice in Dallas impacting the Kansas City Chiefs draft plans?
And again, I don't like to, everybody understands, hopefully, I'm not equating situations. But there was a year, I would say 5-6 years ago, remember when they had Tyreek Hill, and right around the draft, there was all kinds of like audio coming out about like fights between him and his girlfriend, and there was concern that he might be suspended. And they drafted Mecole Hardman in like the second or third round. And I think there was a thought that maybe they were hedging against the possibility of not having Tyreek Hill for a while. So I think if you look back at that history of the Chiefs, if they are concerned that they would lose Rashee Rice for a period of time, maybe they address wide receiver earlier in the draft than they otherwise might have, just based on their history with that situation, which, again, I'm not equating anything. I'm just saying, like, that was a time when they had a fast wide receiver that they thought they might not have for a while, and so they drafted another fast wide receiver to kind of hedge against that. So my guess is that would be the move. I don't know the severity of the Rashee Rice situation and what will come of it ultimately, obviously, but if they're concerned about being short there, then I wouldn't be surprised to see them address that in a wide receiver heavy draft.
Dan, do you think that we could see them make a move to get up higher in the draft to get one of those top name guys?
From 32, where they're always picking?
Yes.
I think it's going to be, you probably have to get in the top 10 to get one of the top 3 guys, right? So that's a pretty big move. I don't know, especially considering there'd be competition probably from teams with higher picks. And then those teams in the top 10, like if you look at Arizona and the Chargers and the Bears at 9, they're going to be motivated to get one of those wide receivers. So I think that's a tough move. But the good thing for the Chiefs and all those teams that are picking down near the bottom of the round, Buffalo, et cetera, is there seem to be just all kinds of inventory at the wide receiver position this year.
Graz, now that Steph Diggs has been traded, is there another player on a team that you think we should keep an eye on by way of trade before the draft?
The one I keep coming back to is Brandon Ayuk with the 49ers. And I think, the Niners have said they don't want to deal him. But like I said earlier, with regard to CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, we don't know what the top of the wide receiver market's going to look like until somebody signs. And if it gets to a point where the Niners feel like they can't trade him or can't pay him, then I think he becomes a possibility, or maybe Deebo Samuel if they can get somebody interested. I don't see them being able to pay both of those guys at the top of the market. So I would keep an eye on that situation. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody I'm not thinking of, but that's the one I keep coming back to when I get asked that question.
Well, that's a juicy one. There's no question about that if that happens.
Yeah, and again, look, I mean, I take the Niners at their word that they don't want to trade him. They'd like to pay him. But my point is, like, they don't know yet what it's going to cost, right? Because nobody does. Because, like, if Justin Jefferson comes in at $31 million a year versus if he comes in at $36 million a year, that changes everything. So my point is there could come a situation where their hand is forced.
Graz, thank you as always. We'll talk to you later in the week.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There's Dan Graziano, of course, ESPN NFL reporter, joining us here on Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. Coming up, last night, an injury in the NBA that one person on this show certainly can relate to. We'll get to that next. It's on Sportsmanlike on ESPN.